Hey everybody, this is Maxine, and I have a few thoughts I'd like to share with you. They fall under the umbrella of how to stay sane in an insane world. Um, have have you noticed, or has it felt as if the inmates are running the asylum, and you're questioning your own sanity? You're saying, "My God, why did I come to this planet in the first place?" I know many of us have had that thought. I want to share with you a way so that you can discern truth from falsehood. It's very, very simple to describe, not always easy to do. Here's how it goes. I've seen this in myself. I've seen this in other people. And if you can just get a grip on this, I think you'll find that your life really begins to move forward for you. And that's the whole idea, is not to just survive, but to thrive while the whole world around us is just unthinkable. Okay, the first place that a lot of people live, well, the first area, well, let me tell you what it is. We go from fantasy to reality to truth. Okay. Now, those of you who study astrology, you know that Neptune rules fantasy, Saturn rules reality, Jupiter rules truth. And I've seen so many people, and perhaps you have too, perhaps you have actually lived this, who are in fantasy. And people know when you're in fantasy. You may not know it. They do. First of all, Neptune, the planet that rules fantasy, rules divine inspiration. It rules martyrdom. It rules escapes of all types. It rules nicotine, alcohol, caffeine, overeating, overdrinking. It rules chemistry and chemicals, drugs. Our fantasy is an escape. And so a lot of people live in their favorite escape, whether they are walking alcoholics or they just have to have a drink to calm down. It settles everything. I'm talking about the person who lives there. They overeat, they overtalk, whatever it is they do, it is in order to avoid reality, which is very painful when it hits. And so, for example, the lovely wife and mother whose husband is cheating on her rampantly, and everybody knows it, and she is perhaps not aware of it, or even if he has been caught, even if she's read about it, or her girlfriend has told her, she can't face it. Perhaps it's a child, a young person whose life is so dreadful that they escape into alcohol and drugs, or maybe it's sleep. A lot of people just sleep their lives away because they don't want to have to deal with reality. And when they deal with reality, it's horribly difficult. This is escape. It's fantasy. And in fantasy, everything is wonderful. And it's great. Unfortunately, at some point, Saturn comes in, reality comes in. Maybe, again, there's so much going on with inappropriate sexual behavior. I'll just use the example of any one of the wives of the men who have recently been accused of sexual improprieties, who perhaps didn't know about it, or maybe if they did know about it, they've been kind of ignoring it. They've read about it in the paper, they've seen it on TV. That is reality. And the harshness of reality bursts the bubble of fantasy. It bursts the dream. Now, again, Neptune, which rules fantasy, also rules divine inspiration. So there is a positive side to that. I'm talking about getting through the inmates running the asylum. If you find yourself escaping, or if you have a friend who is escaping, this can be why. Okay, when reality rears its fear-filled head, the bubble bursts. It's very painful. Saturn rules reality. It rules structure, it rules form. It also rules fear. And this is why very often people go into fantasy, because they're afraid that they can't handle reality, that it's just too overwhelming. And so what happens when reality strikes, and I should say when reality gives you a golden opportunity to face what has really been going on around you, in spite of the fact that it's just so painful. If you will do that, you go to the next step, the final step. But very often what happens is, when faced with reality, perhaps a mistake they made, buyer's remorse, that type of thing, they return to fantasy. And they cry in their beer. They complain. They need more fantasy, more escape, because reality is just so unbelievable, so horrific, so terrible. When you're in fantasy, you are a victim. When you are in reality, you can be angry. You can be sad. You can be angry at what has happened, but you're no longer a victim. So you can take action. As I said, unfortunately, many people return to fantasy. And what happens then is they don't speak up. They can't. It's too painful. If you take charge of your life when you are faced with reality and say, okay, I created this because we are the creators of our life. Why did I create that? I want to see the truth. Jupiter rules truth. Jupiter is the great benefic. Jupiter is the one that brings blessings. There is a gift in every difficult situation. Now, going back to the person perhaps who found herself in a marriage where her husband was just acting egregiously with other women, the reality is that she may need to leave him or divorce him. And if she has had the fantasy of the perfect marriage and the perfect family, she's not able to do that. And so she will live, if she chooses to, in fantasy. The person who was fired from his job has to take responsibility for perhaps always being late. And what happens instead is that person goes into fantasy and can't cope with life. Neptune, escape. So when reality hits, my suggestion is recognize that there is a tendency to escape. Let me just spend the night eating Haagen-Dazs or whatever, drinking or sleep, whatever, binge watching Netflix. And realize that there is a gift in this for you, that the truth, Jupiter, presents a gift. In a case such as a husband who has been accused by more than one woman, perhaps, of being sexually inappropriate, the wife facing reality, facing the fact that this is not the kind of situation she had wanted, can move into taking action, whether it's insisting he get help or perhaps separating, and nevertheless taking charge of the children if they're still young or if they're older, recognizing that, okay, the family has been dysfunctional and she wants to live in truth. When you take the step and move into truth, you're free. You see options you didn't know you had before. Remember, Jupiter expands, and Jupiter expands truth when you move into truth. Now, this is very simple for me to sit here and share with you. It's not always easy. We are faced, our world is faced with some pretty tough decisions right now. There are people who have their head in the sand. There are people who are really angry and upset by what they see is going on in whatever country, whatever situation. And there are those who say, all right, this is what's so. Now, what is the blessing in this? What is the gift in this? And how can I help? What can I do? What can I share? So when I talk to you about Neptune, Saturn, Jupiter, fantasy, reality, and truth, this is one of my contributions. I hope that you found this helpful, and if you have questions, please feel free to ask. I'd be delighted to talk with you. May the stars shine brightly and truthfully on you and yours.